Today I wanted to introduce the new volume from the Library of Wisdom and Compassion by His Holiness that I'm helping with. This is volume 7 in the series. We will have 10, maybe 11, I don't know, maybe 108, volumes. So the cover, if you can see it, is really beautiful. It's a picture of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom, because this book deals explicitly with emptiness. And the photo is, I think, from His Holiness's collection, because the private office sent it to me upon my request. Okay, so I thought I gave a talk about the book a couple of weeks ago. And so this time I thought to read something so you get an idea of what's in the book. Okay, so this is chapter 7 in the book, and this section is called Who Am I? Okay, so this was my mantra for my whole life, actually, but especially in younger days, it was a really painful thing. Now it's who am I? Well, I don't have. There isn't an inherently existent self to worry about. So calm down. Okay. Okay. So the Buddha counseled us to recognize true dukkha, dukkha meaning unsatisfactory conditions, abandon true origins of dukkha, actualize true cessations, and cultivate true paths. Because this is done by a person, the self, questions relating to the existence and nature of the self become important. The self is the agent who experiences suffering and happiness, engages in constructive and destructive actions, practices the path, and attains nirvana. What is the nature of this being, this self or I? This is an important issue for both Buddhist and non-Buddhist schools in ancient India, and continues to be important for us today. Many philosophical systems have arisen concerning this topic. When we examine the causal process of happiness and dukkha, it is evident that these experiences arise in relation to multiple causes and conditions, both internal factors and such as our sense faculties and our ways of interpreting events, and external factors such as sense objects. What is the nature of these factors that give rise to our experience of pain and pleasure? Do they actually exist? In what way do they exist? This, too, was the focus of major reflection in ancient India. And this is, all time, historical times, all religions, everybody's dealing with these questions. In our own experience, when we ask, what is this I? We notice an innate, natural, instinctive sense of self. If our hand is hurt, we automatically say, I am hurt. Although our hand is not us, we instinctively identify with that experience and feel I am hurt. Here, the sense of I arises in relation to our body. The sense of I also arises in relation to our mind. When there is a grumpy mood, we say, I am grumpy. And when delight is present, we exclaim, I am delighted. Okay. However, this I isn't completely identifiable with our body, because if we could exchange our old, wrinkled, sick body with a fresh, youthful, healthy body, we would do so. In the depth of our heart, we feel like there is a self who would benefit from this exchange. Okay, but so on one hand, we identify with the body, on the other hand, we don't. It's something other than us. Similarly, if we were given the opportunity to exchange our afflictive, ignorant mind with a Buddhist fully awakened one, we would eagerly do this. This suggests that we do not completely identify with our mind either. Because if we could exchange it, then we would. Okay. This willingness to exchange our mind for another person's mind indicates a belief in the depth of our heart that there is a separate person, an I, who would benefit from this exchange. On the one hand, the sense of I arises in relationship to our body or mind. On the other hand, we do not completely identify with either our body or our mind. In our naive, ordinary sense, there is a feeling of self, of a being who is intricately involved with the body and mind and is the master who can control them. Yet the I feels independent of both the body and mind with its own distinct identity. So you can see in our own mind, we're totally confused. We say, oh, I identify with this is me, and then 5 minutes later, no, this is something different. I am separate from body and mind, the aggregates. Yeah. So yet the I feels independent of both the body and mind with its own distinctive identity. In the case of those who believe in rebirth, this sense of a separate self extends across lifetimes, with an independent self taking birth in one life and then in another. Even those who do not believe in multiple lives think the same person experiences childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. Although the body and mind constantly change, we have the sense of an I that endures over all that change. And endures over time, and we say, I was young then, and now I am old, as if it were the same I, and yet the body and mind are changing. Okay. We believe there is a person that holds the continuums of body and mind over time. Because of the problematic identity of the self, many non-Buddhist schools posit a self or soul, an Atman, that has an absolute status, is unchanging, unitary, and autonomous. Buddhist schools in general reject the notion of such a self or soul or eternal principle. They espouse that the self or person is dependent on the mental and physical aggregates, and only on the basis of the continuum of the mental and physical aggregates can we say that there is a person who exists through time. Whereas we feel like there's an independent person that exists through time, but it's only because the body and mind exists. Aside from the body and mind, we cannot find an autonomous person that ages. The Buddha was clear that the conception of a permanent, unified, and independent self is a metaphysical construct, an artificial conjecture that exists only in the mind of people who have intellectually thought about it. Rather, our innate sense of self does not feel that we exist that way, okay, when we go deeper. Okay. While unliberated sentient beings have an erroneous, innate sense of a real self, this conception of a self as unchanging, monolithic, and autonomous is not it. Yeah, the unchanging, monolithic, autonomous one is too gross. Our innate sense of self is a bit subtler. In addition, our naive sense of the self being a master over the body and mind is also false. The self does not exist as an independent controller or master of the aggregates, although it sure seems to exist, don't you think? You know, I'm going to make my body work. I'm going to concentrate, in my meditation. So it seems then that we should control body and mind. Yeah. What is our experience? We can't. In this way, the Buddha rejected self-existence and embraced selflessness, not self, as translated by Pali translators. Various tenet systems contain different assertions concerning the meaning of selflessness, the self that is negated, and the conventionally existent self that is born, dies, practices the path, and attains liberation. One comment that I often hear, especially from people maybe at universities or people who have read books, is, well, there is no self. And they really think that there absolutely is no self, okay? Because they can't discriminate between an inherently existent self and a conventionally existent self. So they think, well, the Buddha negated self altogether. There's no person. But you can tell that they're not really thinking very deeply about it, because if they did, then who's sitting here reading this book? Oh, there's no person sitting. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So this kind of misunderstanding happens a lot. The Heart Sutra, a popular Mahayana sutra, speaks of realizing the emptiness of even or also the five aggregates, depending on the translation. This indicates the wide range of phenomena that are empty. The five aggregates on which a person depends are empty of inherent existence. And the five aggregates in general include all products, all impermanent phenomena. Okay, since the aggregates are empty, so too is the person that depends on them. Since the I is empty of inherent existence, the mine, the one that thinks this is mine, this is my, okay, is also empty of inherent existence. Just as the aggregates in the self are empty because they are designated independence on their parts, so too all other conditioned phenomena are also empty. Because all conditioned phenomena are empty, all unconditioned or uncompounded phenomena that are necessarily imputed in relation to conditioned things, those are also empty. Finally, even emptiness, the ultimate nature of all phenomena, is empty of inherent existence. Just as sentient beings in samsara are empty of inherent existence, so too are Buddhas who dwell in non-abiding nirvana. Okay. Does this mean nothing exists? Does this mean that when we sit in the hot sun, the person getting sunburned is non-existent? Of course not. Although persons and other phenomena cannot be found when analyzed, someone who experiences and what is experienced still exists. This is the real key to understanding the Prasangika view. Understanding the nature of reality is challenging. How do we identify and refute what doesn't exist and still establish what does? In response, ancient Indian philosophical traditions develop various theories. Some accept the concept of an eternal soul or self. Others assert a primordial substance out of which everything arises. Buddhists reject such notions. Meanwhile, some Buddhist schools accept the selflessness of persons and phenomena, although others do not accept a selflessness of phenomena. Among the Buddhists that accept the selflessness of both persons and phenomena, some accept true existence and others do not. You see why it's difficult to realize? You know? Among those who reject true existence, some maintain some notion of inherent existence conventionally, whereas others reject inherent existence even conventionally. For this reason, there is a great deal of discussion about the nature of reality. But understanding reality goes way beyond discussion and words and language. Okay, so that's just a little glimpse into what's talked about in this book. Yeah. So I think His Holiness really enjoys teaching about emptiness. And as you read the book, you'll see some of the quotations, that when he's been giving the Einlan teachings, those quotations and, his emphasis on using logic and reasoning, all that is sprinkled throughout the book.